Alright, so let's get going with the final part of this drawing. So we're going to do the whole body in this part, finish off the drawing. So we have a little bit of a larger space to fill in now, also less smaller details, so it will not take too long to get this finished. So you can see that the fur right here is very curly. It's also a little bit darker than the head, and there's a lot of yellow in this part of the chest. I'm not sure if I'm going to put in so much yellow as I see on the reference. I want it to match with the head, of course. So I'm going to build up neutrally and then glaze over my brighter yellow colors later. And then towards the back, the fur is getting more out of focus and blurrier. So less detail right there. So I'm going to put the most detail in this area and then let it fade a bit towards the butt and the tail. And then here you see the leg and then a bit of the belly, and then you see some of the background shining through right here, but we'll finish that off as well. But let's get started first with this area. I'm going to start off quite dark, as I want that part of the fur to be quite a lot darker than the head is, to push the chest backward. Alright, so as I see mainly a warm glow in the fur, I'm going to start off with a warm gray undertone. So this is 706. And I'm just going to put down a light base layer of that. And I'm not looking at all the curls yet, I just put down an even base layer. I do look at the direction of the curls a little bit, following that direction. The edge of the chest and the shoulder is very light. This edge is very light. So I'm going to leave open a little border of pastel matte. This is where we have that very bright lighting. So I don't need any dark undertone right there. I don't push. So I just put this down very lightly. Towards the bottom, the fur is getting even more dark. So I really want to put that value in there, the difference in value within my base tones already. Just being very light with my pressure. Let's connect this color to the chin. So this darker color below the chin will also make sure that the chin and the muzzle gets pushed forward. Let's take it to about right there. So this is where the fur is starting to become blurrier. And right here, there's a very different tone in the base. So I'm taking this tone to about right there, the edge of the shoulder. And you can still see some of the pastel matte which is showing through, but that's no problem because we're going to be layering lots of other tones on top as well. I think I also want to adjust this edge a little bit. I feel like it's not completely the right shape, so let's get a little bit of the brown from the background and just adjust this. It's quite important that the body has the right shape. So I'm now looking at the general shape of the shoulder, and then the curls that are sticking out I can just draw on top of the background, but I want the general shape of the body to be correct, and it wasn't completely correct yet, so a little bit of green on top for some more depth. Right, and blur that out a bit so that it becomes nice and soft. And then I can always go back in with my background colors and just continue that a little bit, so like that. All right, so that's better. So this is my starter layer, but I see many more colors in there. I definitely see some of the orangey tones, so the 620. So I'm going to take that and add it, especially right here. I see quite a lot of orange. Just place that color in there, a little more on the chin. And this is that light, that color from the background that is reflecting onto the white fur. So don't be afraid to put quite some color in there. Also a little bit on the rest of the body. Not everywhere though, I just see here and there some spots that are more orangey looking, and that's where I add this color. Let's not forget my piece of paper so that I don't smudge the background. All right, and then I definitely need some more darkness here at the bottom, so I'm going to switch to the 708, and also a little bit more darkness here underneath the chin. Right, so making sure that here at the bottom it's the dark. And I think I also need a little bit of brown in there. Also to make the fur fit with the background better, so I'm just glazing that on top. So that's the 635. Little bit here underneath the chin as well. Alright, so now I feel like the right base tone of the fur is starting to come together. So it's almost time to do a little bit of blending before we can add the curls. Okay, maybe I need to put in a little bit of pink or violet. Yes, let's do that. Let's do the 642. I think that will look nice. Just mix that in a little bit for even more color variation. Gives a lot of depth to the gray as well. Okay, so that's good. And then I just blend lightly, so I don't try to push because I want enough room or tooth of the paper left to do my details. Okay, so I want this bottom part a little smoother. It's still too streaky looking, so I'm going to go on top just a bit more with my 708. Tiny bit more of the orangey tone, especially around the edge. 620. Bit more brown, so I'm just mixing until I'm happy with this base color. Maybe also a little bit more brown underneath the chin. So don't be afraid to go dark when building up white fur like this, because it gives you so much more room to do the lighter details. So what I often see with beginners, I'm not sure if I mentioned that already in this tutorial, but that beginners, they start off too light. So they start off with the lightest gray or with white even right away, which gives you no room for detailing. But when you build up the layers dark like this, you have to keep your pressure very light. Okay, so I think that's better. I want to put in this light edge already, but not with white. Let's do that with... I do think I need a light gray, a cool light gray. So I'm going to do that with 110. With this, I can already just draw some of these curls on top of the background, which gives me some contrast in this area already. So I just look at the texture that I see on the edge. And with the light hand, I try to recreate that. So some hairs stick out a little more. They're not really curls, the hairs that are sticking out. It's more like very compact clumps of hair. The curls are quite short, very compact. And I don't push too much because I still want to do my brightest details with white at the very end. So for that I also need enough tooth on the paper still. And actually here at the bottom, the hairs are getting darker. So I think I will switch to pink. I see a little bit of pink. So let's switch to the 681. The pink tone, and continue my sticking out hairs with that. Can take some of that gray inwards a bit, make it blend. Alright, so now I can start adding all the little curls in there. So I will start off with gray, and then I'll probably also do some with the pink tone and maybe some beige. But gray is a good one to start with, a good neutral tone to draw in most of the curls. So I'm not going to draw any hairs individually. I'm really going to look at the clumped hairs and the direction. Oh, this is the 110 still. I think that's a good one to do, to work with. I also don't need to push hard with it. Let's sharpen this. It's a little bit too dull. That's better. So the curls here are super short, and I need to make sure that this underlayer is still showing through or showing in between the curls. So I'm not going to just draw everything full of curls. I need to leave open some space in between so that the underlayer can show through. And this is just to map out all the curls in the direction of them. I don't push. And right here, just underneath the chin, they're growing forward a lot. So the curls are really coming forward. And this will take some patience, so don't rush it. Alright, so I try to not think too much about it. I just keep following the texture. Work my way downwards, but I'm definitely not going to copy every single curl that I see. And it will definitely take multiple layers of detailing before it starts to look right. So right now it's very flat looking because there's not enough dark shadow yet in between the curls, but that's something we can finish when we've drawn in the curls. I do try to make sure though that every single curl is different. So right here on this side, the curls are starting to get smaller again and blurrier. So let's take it to about there and I will finish this off later. And then for this bottom half, I feel I have to switch to a slightly darker tone. I'm going to switch to the 681. Use very little pressure with it. Let's also switch to 105 for a little bit, which is a beige. Also put in some more yellow toned curls. This is a lighter tone, so I try to not push too much with it. And you can see that the curls on this side are going more towards the left. And on the right side, they're going towards the right. Alright, so we're almost there with the first layer of curls. So this part will take the most time, the rest will be a little bit quicker. It's very important that, especially this part, is very detailed. So they look really flat right now, they look like they're glued on there, the curls. So what I'm going to do is tap, just tap, to make them blend in with the underlayer a bit more, but I don't want to smudge them out. Just tap. Alright, so that's a bit better. And what I can do now is start putting in the contrast. So the darkest shadows in between the curls. I can't do that from the start because when I start off with such a dark base layer, I can't draw my light details on top anymore. So that's why I do the darkest shadows in between the curls. So for the tones, I'm going to use 708 and also brown, so a combination of those. And I'm really going to focus on darkening up, so especially here at the bottom and in the center. So I start with the 708. Making sure that the curls themselves stay intact, so I'm going in between them very carefully. The chin needs some detailing as well, I will get to that. When the lines are too harsh, I just tap. Alright, so this makes quite big of a difference already. Let's switch to the brown for a second and just go over the gray here and there to give the gray more depth. Alright, so I think we're almost there for this layer at least. Alright, so I think that looks nice. Doing a little bit of tapping here and there just to make sure that the lines, the shadows in between aren't too harsh looking, that I don't have any harsh lines in there. The chin needs a lot more work. It faded a little bit, so I need to touch that up. So let's do that right now. I need to lighten up the edge of it. So I'm taking 110 and focus on brightening up that edge. That's a rim lighting. So that reflective lighting on the bottom of the chin. Alright, so that's better. Now we can see the chin again. So I don't want to brighten up the curls too much, but I do want to glaze some more color over them and lighten up some of them, especially right here. So first, let's do some glazing. I want a little bit more of that orange tone in the fur again. So very carefully, with almost no pressure, I'm going over. Maybe I do feel like I need a little more shadow, especially here in the center line. So this is where most of the shadows are. Of course, there's a whole skeleton and a lot of muscles underneath there, so we shouldn't forget that. So right now, there's not too much, not a lot of shape in there, so I need more shape, more structure. So I'm going to darken up some of the shadows in the center line. And then we have one shoulder blade right here, which comes forward a little bit, and then one shoulder blade right there. And then in between, we have a deeper area. So here we have the most shadow. Okay, so that's better. Let's continue. Also, I want to glaze some blue. I see a little bit of a blue glaze, so I'm going to use 435. A little bit right there. A little bit right here, not too much. Just a bit of blue. And now I can start to do some highlighting. So now I'm going to take white. Make sure it's very sharp first. Now I can highlight the curls or the parts of the curls that come forward. So mainly the tips of the curls. Very carefully. Near and there I can just add some little flyaway hairs that are crossing the curls. So now you can see that we have lots of room left on the paper to do our highlights. Which works really well. I'm going to leave this part, the bottom part, a little less detailed. That can be a bit blurrier as well. Just here and there I will add some little flyaway hairs. of course I can also highlight some of the curls on the edge. A little bit more yellow in the fur, so this is 615, which I'm carefully glazing. A little bit of this. Then I feel we can move on to the rest of the body. All right, let's move on. I feel this is good enough now for now. So I can always come back because there's still a lot of tooth left on the paper. So I can always add more detail. But what I first want to do is do the base layering on the whole rest of the body. So let's get started with that. And I want to get as many colors in there as possible. So you can see right here in between the belly and the leg that it's quite light. So let's put that in right now before we forget. So for that I'm going to use, let's see, 722 gray. Little square of light coming through. It's maybe a little too dark, so I'm going to go over with 110. A little bit of 105, some beige in there. All right. So there we have that bit of light, and then actually here on this side, on the edge of his bum, there's also quite a bit of light. So let's put that in, also with 110. And this can all be very blurry. Then the back is very light. So I want that to be very light for some nice contrast in there. So I'm going to get started with the 110 right away. But first, I think I want to adjust the shape of the back a little bit. Let's go over this with a bit of the orange that I used for the background. It's not completely the right shape yet, so going on top of that with a bit of brown to tone it down. And then blend that in. All right, and then I'm taking 110. And I'm going to put down quite a solid base layer with that. Going around the ear. The edge of the ear right here is a little darker than this area on the back. So that way the ear will stand out nicely as well. The edge of the shoulder here is also highlighted a little bit, so let's add a bit of the 110 right there right away. All right, so here it's starting to get darker again. So that is where I switch to the next gray, 722, a little darker. And this is where it's starting to get real dark, and also right here the fur is starting to be warmer, so that is where I switch to warmer toned grays. Let's get started with the 7/6 to begin with. Right, so the edge of the belly is coming to around there, and then we have some darker orangey hairs sticking out from the belly, which I'm also going to put in, but let's first just sketch out the shape of the belly a bit so we know how that goes. I'm trying to follow the body, the shape of the body a little bit. Starting to get tired. I'm losing my English. But I'm trying to follow the shape of the body and also the direction of the hair. So that's why I'm working in horizontal motions. So that's a very basic base layer, but I need more value, more contrast. So let's move on to my 708 and do some shadowing, especially here on the bot. It's darker. Here we have the shadow from the hip. So it's good to know some anatomy, so you know where to place the shadows. Okay, so then I also see some brown, so I'm going to switch to the 635 and also glaze some brown on top of the gray. Then here, this hair here at the bottom, which is very dark and dirty. Bit of that orange, 620. Also on the belly. Okay, so then I want some more color, so I'm also going to glaze 642, just like I did with the chest. Alright, so that's the base layer for the body. So I have quite some lights and darks in there already. So now I can blend. See if we can start with the detailing already. Though we don't need much detail. Right here on the body, it's more important that the values are right. Using another finger to blend in the light area so that I don't smudge all my brown on top of the highlighted parts. Alright, so that's looking nice. So we do need some more detailing on this part, so the very edge of the shoulder. So let's draw some more curls there with the 681. Continue the curls to the edge of the shoulder. So then I feel I need more darkness right here. So let's add a bit more 708. And a little more brown. And a bit more blending again. And now I can also draw some fur texture on the back and the belly. So let's do that. Let's use 110 for this part on the top. So the fur here is a little less curly, more like wavy, and it's not that prominent. So more drawing like clumps of fur in a wavy motion. And let's just also use this color to do some fur texture on the belly. But this is a darker area, so I need to use very little pressure to make this light color less prominent. And I don't need to fill up the whole area, I can just insinuate the fur by drawing some clumps and tap it in to just create some texture. Alright, so this can be nice and blurry. And then for the tail, I'm going to put down a base layer of 722. The tail is very blurry, so he's wagging his tail very, very fast. So it's not in focus, so we will put it out of focus as well in the drawing. Let's mix a little bit of 7-6 within, just to warm up this tone a bit. Looking at the shape of the tail. And then blending that in, make it nice and blurry. I don't mind if I blend over the background as well. And then with 110, I can just highlight the top a little bit. A little bit of orange with it to also match the background, 620. And I think that's enough already. So I just want to just lightly put it in there just so you know that it's a tail, but it doesn't need any more detail than this. Then with the white, I'm going to highlight the back, the top of the back, and also create some fur texture with that. A little bit more detail in these hairs on the belly. Bit more brown. And then I'm also using the brown to put a little bit more contrast in between the curls, which we didn't really draw in yet, but by adding some extra shadow here and there, we can still make the fur come out a bit more. Okay, so I can maybe add a little bit more color. Let's do some blue, what's this, 435. Glaze that on the top half of the body. And then maybe a little bit more of that 642 color on the center, just to give that gray a bit more depth. All right, so we are almost there. Add a little bit more. It's maybe a bit too light, this color. Let's take some 724 and add a little bit more contrast between the hairs on the top half, so the highlighted part of the back. Choosing a cool gray for that, because it fits well with the blue that I just added. And then also this part of the shoulder, it needs more contrast in between the curls. So I'm also doing that, again with the 708. maybe a bit more yellow glazing. So 615 this is. Put a bit more of the yellow from the background into the fur. Especially right here. Doing some final details. Finishing up some of the darker shadows. Okay. Some more highlighting on the curls on the left side of the shoulder right here. Still feel like this edge is too harsh, so I need to tone that down. Going over with a bit of 681. Smudge that out. Let's make it even darker right here at the bottom, and then I'm really going to call it finished. A bit more brown. Alright, so I think I will call this one finished. I can basically keep on working on it for a few more hours if I want to, but everything that should be in there is in there. And I hope you enjoyed it. I want to thank you so much for your support this year. I've really enjoyed making all the tutorials this year, and I'm definitely planning on keeping it up in the next year. So thank you so much. I am curious to hear what you think of this one, and I'm also excited to see your results. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next year with a new $7 tutorial. So thanks for watching.